So who are we? Are we those rough spots? Are we the smooth spots? Are we the part of ourselves that we love, that other people adore? Are we the part of ourselves that we loathe, that other people can't stand? What are we? Who are we? We are in part 4 of our journey into the book, The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer. And part 4 is about going beyond. It's about going beyond our identities, going beyond our limited sense of self. In fact, it's about looking through all of the illusions that we may have inherited, that we may have put upon ourselves, that may have been built up by the experiences of our childhood, or the experiences of our society or our families, or our own psyche that took on an idea and grew from that idea and created a context around us that may have been good for one period of our lives, may have been good for a time, may have helped us survive, may have made padding and protection so that we could be in this world. But essentially, that energy that we built up around us, that idea of ourselves, is something that can eventually limit us. Because, as he talked about in the book, if the psyche or the emotions, the belief systems, the ideas, the identities we have create sort of a house around us, and as he describes, there's a great valley, a great vast expanse around us, but we're living within the walls and we can't see, we find ourselves limited, and we wake up to this possibility, this notion that there may be some limitations imposed upon us, and that maybe we have something to do with those limitations. Not necessarily that we consciously created them, but maybe we are the only person that can take them down. Just maybe we are the only person that can take those walls of the house we built around us to secure ourselves in our own specific identity that has led us to this moment, that has actually fought for us to get to this moment, this point in time. But we are the only person that can recognize in this moment, I have a higher sense of safety, I have a higher sense of self, I have a higher sense of protection. And I don't need these walls any longer. I no longer need this identity, and I am ready to turn those walls that keep me from that great valley, that keep me from that great expanse, I am ready to make them transparent. I'm ready to make them transparent. So if you could imagine yourself in a glass house that you could see through, that's the first step. The first step is being able to recognize that those walls are illusions. Those walls are in fact not real. They were created by ideas, experiences, and emotions. Yes, meant to protect us sometimes, sometimes not. Sometimes meant to build walls and keep us away from each other. But the moment that we can become aware, we turn those walls into a transparent film. And from that action, we can begin to take the baby steps about recognizing that, in fact, that wall really isn't even here. It's like I'm not going to do it. It's like if I just walked right off this stage, and there's really nothing there. There's really no boundary. There's really nothing keeping me from a greater identity. Has anyone heard of labeling theory? It's something that as a teacher you learn about because you have to be very, very careful and very, very mindful with young people. But labeling theory is that idea that the moment you identify and put a label on a child, it can become a self-fulfilling prophecy. So if you have one experience with someone and you call them angry, rebellious, anything, Put in a word. And even things that you would think are good, caretaker, the one who always cleans up, the one who always does this. It doesn't actually matter if it's a positive or a negative in our minds, but once you press a label upon someone and they have the opportunity to identify with that label, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's like putting on a new lens, and all of a sudden, things are filtered through that lens. You know that the thing that happens if you get a new car, like a red slug bug or something, like you get one, right? And then all of a sudden, You see them all over, right? You notice every other car that's like that one, right? And people notice you. People identify you with that vehicle, right? But you've had this experience, I'm sure, in some way that something that you didn't notice before is now keenly in your awareness, right? It's the same with labeling theory. So the moment we have a label placed upon us, or the moment we make an agreement with a label that was offered to us, this is what happens more as we become adults and we become more conscious of our co-creation on the spiritual path, is we actually, sometimes knowingly, sometimes unknowingly, whenever anyone says, oh, greedy, this, selfish, this, whatever it is, they place out that label, we stick our hands out and go, I'll make an agreement with that. Done. Because that's the only way that it can affect us. So if that label has become ingrained in our internal psyche, it's because we somehow, knowingly or unknowingly, made an agreement with it. So our journey then becomes a journey of waking up to our agreements. Waking up to our agreements and waking up to the identity of our inheritance, the identity of our childhood, and going, oh, that's no longer my identity. But here's a clue to recognize if we think we're done with the work and we think we have no other identities other than God consciousness, here's the litmus test. When we're offered a hand for a label, when we're offered an identity, when we're offered a bit of conflict, do we defend it? Do we defend it at all? Because if there is any part of me that wants to justify my behavior, that wants to defend, that wants to protect, that wants to attack, that means there is a part of me that has become comfortable or that has belief in this illusion of an identity that is a label other than Holy Spirit, other than highest self, other than Christ consciousness, other than divine beloved. And that is a beautiful thing because that tells us where our work begins. The ego protects and the ego defends. The ego is the one in that wall, behind that wall, in that home created by ideas and identities. Some of them are good and some of them are bad. Those are just our human judgments, right? Good and bad. And as long as we stay in a world that there is good and bad, as long as we call some of them bad, we're going to call some of them good, right? And then we're going to have a craving to bring to us better ones and an aversion to push away the good ones. Sound like an endless cycle? A futile quest? It should, because it is. It's a futile quest to go about trying to create only positive identities and trying to rebel or repress any negative identities. And in fact, the master teacher and all spiritual practitioners have brought forth this idea that it's not about that game. It's about coming from an entirely different place, an entirely different consciousness. A consciousness that sees from awareness, from pure awareness, not from black and white, not from good and bad. And it is only from that place that a spiritual solution is born, that a new identity can be formed, that we can truly be free. So are we ready to break free from our constructed self-concepts? Are we ready to break free from the comfort zones that we cling to, whether they be seemingly positive or seemingly negative self-ideas? Are we ready to see what is beyond those ideas of self? If we are, we're ready to take the next step on the spiritual journey, on the spiritual path. But it's not a safe step, is it? It's not a controllable step. In fact, it's a leap. It's a leap and the net will appear. It's an act of utter faith. I have an inkling that this journey is not one that we get to opt out of. That this journey of breaking through the self-concepts that limit us, breaking through any identities that we have of ourselves, is not actually optional. Have you ever gone through an experience in life that broke your identities for you? Maybe the death of a beloved, that you identified yourself in that relationship as being a mother, a parent, a father, a sister, a brother, a son, a daughter, a wife, a husband, a partner. And all of a sudden something shifted and you no longer had that same identity. And everything around you broke up. Everything within you broke up, right? Maybe it's a divorce. Maybe it's the loss of a job. But we are pushed into exploring and redefining ourselves on this human journey that we call life. We are pushed into it. So what would it be like if we recognized that we have the ability to quicken our capacity to actively engage it? Not to sit in fear, waiting for it to come, waiting for an identity to be broken for us, but actually to understand, to master, to engage the practice of breaking our own identities so that when a break comes to us, we recognize it. We recognize it and we have the skills and the capacity to be with it because we know ourselves beyond our roles and beyond our identities. That is absolutely what the Christ knew. That is absolutely what I think any person of God consciousness that goes into places that are racked and ravaged with disease, right, goes in with that knowing that I am not this body, I am not a label, I am beyond all of it. And our priorities change, right? Everything rearranges around us because we have, in fact, one priority. Our priority is one. It is one thing. It is, let me be what I am here to be. Let me do what I am here to do. Let me have no resistance, no boundary, and show me. Show me. So that's the life that Christ was called to live. That's the life that we are called to live. To get rid of the carefully crafted self, as Singer says, the carefully crafted self that anchors us. Are we willingly going to pull up the anchor? Because the anchor's coming up, is it not? The anchor comes up. I mean, who gets to be 70, 80, or 90 and that could stand up and say, the anchor never came up, it's still hanging out down there, I'm anchored down? Say me, it's been safe and comfortable the whole time. Safe and comfortable the whole time. Don't worry about it. But we teach this kind of idea that stay safe, comfortable, and anchored. It's ingrained in our systems. We build up mansions on earth. When we defend ourselves, we are really defending our walls, our psyche, and our self-constructed self-concept. There is a suggestion in the book during this section, and he says to look at what makes you uncomfortable. You know, we look at all these things that make us comfortable and all these labels, and sometimes when we break out of those labels, we get uncomfortable. But it's this concept that it can be a good thing to be uncomfortable, to call in being uncomfortable. So he makes some suggestions in the book, and one of the things he says is try to go out one of these days this week, go out without getting dressed up, without, putting yourself on the way you would have it, without going out the way you're expected to go out into the world, without getting dressed up. I thought that wasn't the best idea because I think that would be kind of easy for some of us to go out without grooming ourselves. No, but if that's a thing for you, like if you think, to go out without grooming myself, if that gives you anxiety, try it. We're going to find you at Hy-Vee this week. Usually people don't recognize me. People walk right by me. If I go out without my groomed self on, I have my little hippy-dippy self on, and I watch people walk right by me, and I'm like, they didn't notice. They didn't notice. But you know what I'm saying? We have a certain number of people that we allow to see ourselves in certain lights. And beyond that, anxiety comes up, discomfort comes up. So maybe that's one for you to try on this week. Maybe it's something else. Try this. Try staying with a conversation when you want to shut it down. Try staying with a conversation when you want to shut it down. Try keeping your heart open when you feel like it's wanting to close. Try keeping your heart open when you feel like it's wanting to close. Be with what's uncomfortable. Try going out without a partner, a friend. Try going out to something, an event, an activity, and simply notice how different it feels not to have the one by your side or the ones around you that make you feel, and then fill in the blanks. What do I feel when I'm with a bunch of my friends? Who has this experience? When you're with a group of your friends, are you louder? Are you more flamboyant? Are you more willing to say things? But if you were there all by yourself and you didn't know anyone, how would you be? I'm sure some people have had experiences where they've been driving in their cars and they've thrown a little holler out because of something they saw happen around them, right? How would that be if the one that you hollered at was the same one that your friend invited to dinner at your house that night? Or was the one that pulled up next to you in the Unity parking lot as you came into church? How would that be? Uncomfortable? Because a different self, there is a different self, is there not, behind the walls of a car? And ever seen anyone picking their nose in their car? Right? But I'm not going to pick my nose right here. You're not going to pick your nose right next to the person sitting next to you, right? The live streamers, though, they might be picking their noses. No Facebook pictures posting from that. But there are different identities based on our circumstances and our surroundings. We have little rules that we put upon ourselves. There was one time in New Jersey where a young man behind me in the car at a light threw some trash out the window. And if you know me, you know I have an identity around the environment. And I breathed into it, and I thought about my responsibility, and then I thought about, what would I really do? What do I want to do? Do I want to do anything here? Should I take any action here? As the light was red. And I made a choice. I decided not to have an experience of that upsets me in my own mind and not share that with this person. And then I thought, it's also mine not to attack this person and not to call what they're doing wrong. And it's also mine to be responsible for my environment when I can be. And it's also mine to, so at the light, I went through all of that. And I decided to get out of the car. I went back to his car. And I picked up the trash. And I kindly said, "You dropped this." And then I went back to my car and brought the trash into my car. I also did that in New York City once to the discomfort of the person sitting next to me that was like, "You're in the middle of New York City and you never know what could be in that car." But are we willing to do things that make us uncomfortable? What are all the paradigms around our behavior, around our experience, around how we're supposed to show up for each other, how we're supposed to show up for our families, for our world, for ourselves? Only when we break through of all of those paradigms will we truly be free to come from our source, to come from that internal spirit, that absolute guidance system that allows us to show up with no walls around us, nothing to contain us. I have a friend who is an amazing, amazing musician. And every time I ask this friend about why haven't you put out a CD yet, or why haven't you recorded your music, amazing musician, could be a studio musician with a load of instruments and has a voice like Lyle Lovett. And whenever I would ask this person, why haven't you put out your music yet? He would say, "I'm not ready yet. I need some more practice. I need to rehearse some more. I need some more training. I need some more classes. I need some more." So in this time that I was witnessing this with this friend, well, what did I do? I came to ministerial school, and I said this prayer before coming. I said, "God, make a plant out of me," because I didn't know how I would have the money to sustain what I was about to do, but I was taking a leap of faith, and I made a kind of an energetic contract that I'm willing to spend everything I have, but I'm not willing to go into debt. And the only thing I could think that produces something freely without having any other resources is a plant. I thought about like kittens and stuff like that, but then you have to sell them, and then that made me feel bad. So I went to the plant idea, right? A plant births other plants, and they freely birth from itself. So my prayer was, God, make a plant out of me. Well, before coming to ministerial school, I had done some music. I had played with some bands here and there, little stuff. But while I'm witnessing this friend continually saying, I'm not good enough, I still need to practice, I just need to get this right, I have my time from the beginning of ministerial school out to the end of it to 2 years on the road. And in that time, I have put out 2 CDs that served to put food in my mouth while I was on the road. That in circulating these gifts and people wanting to receive them, I was taken care of. And if you look at the skill and the talent level, in the world's view, in any sane person's view, you've got this friend up here, and you've got me way down here. But where was the courage? Where was the willingness? There are things we all hear and see on the radio. There are things we all hear and see in our professional lives where we know that we see a variety of gifts, a variety of consciousness that's pulling forth and that gets attention. The only thing limiting ourselves is the self that is afraid. So are we willing to let go of the fear and put our gifts into action, put our true self, our divine self into action, and let go of defending the limited self, let go of the fear identities? Are we willing to look at what makes us comfortable and what makes us uncomfortable? And to be willing to be uncomfortable just enough that we could take the next step in unfolding and redefining who we are. Stay with a conversation when you want to shut it down. Go out of your comfort zone, out of your friend group, out of your family system, out of your partnership. Go out and meet the world and see what it feels like to meet the world as you. Simply pay attention. Sit with the incessant need to act, to criticize another. Sit with that. That's another exercise. That's another challenge. Instead of lashing out with criticisms, just sit with it right before you launch it. Feel it. When you hear it in your mind coming up this week, feel it, hear it, and instead of launching it, sit with it. See where you feel it. See what it brings up. See what identity is being defended. Step into something that you don't feel you're really ready for, but you feel called to. Step into something you're not really ready for, but you feel called to. That's what we're here to do. So the challenge for this week is to stop waiting to be pushed into growth and choose to be pulled by a vision. The ego will call this the danger zone because it is unpredictable and it is uncontrollable. Your family and the community may not like it because it won't obey the rules. Society may not like it because it's not conforming. And government may not like it because it doesn't adhere to a worldly power, it adheres to a higher power. But Christ stepped into this zone and called it the kingdom. Namaste.